Welcome to another episode of Aligning Authenticity, where we talk about all things mental health. And again, we have Brendan, who has
Hello
come.
everyone, I'm back again.
Yes, for a second episode, we did say this was going to happen. What Brendan has also requested is for us to talk a little bit more about, what is the mental health climate or the landscape, at least what it looks like in Malaysia. So, but maybe as a start, right? Maybe the first question that we can also address a little bit more is, how do you feel the mental health landscape is right now in Malaysia?
I think the landscape is improving,
Okay.
not the best. However, since what has happened during COVID, conversations around mental health are improving. We are speaking a lot about it.
Yeah.
Awareness is rising up more than ever now due to phones, laptops,
Yeah.
the rising of the internet. Awareness is everywhere. However, on the other side of the spectrum are people taking action? Are they seeking help? Are they promoting that community aspect of mental health?
Yeah.
Are they being there for each other? Or is it just more like you have to do this, you have to do that, and not practicing what they preach? But there's also that kind of that misaligned between that action and that awareness,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that there's definitely a little bit of a gap, right, between those who might learn a little bit more about or be aware. At least the first stage is awareness, right, of
Yeah.
mental health. And you're right that when it comes to a lot of that content that's out there, there's so much there, right? Like, oh, three signs you have this issue, or five signs that you're going through something.
Yeah.
And I noticed that there are quite a lot of people, that actually digest this content. But when it comes to really understanding what it looks like, one is I feel like maybe sometimes there's also not really as much of that verification as to whether it's accurate or not, this
Yeah.
information, and then and as you said, like in the bigger picture of it is where we're absorbing all of this content or digesting a lot of it. There's so much that you can find online, but how many are actually really taking action on it?
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
From the rise of social media, there's a lot of information out there. Some are true, some are accurate, some are misinformation. Then what do you do as an individual, as a group, as a community, as a leader in the space to kind of segregate
Yeah.
those two
Yeah.
information, one that is accurate and the other is inaccurate? And who are you to say it's accurate or not?
And I feel
Yeah.
like with any of the topics, right? So
Yeah.
whether you want to talk about fitness or if it's certain products or even recipes, like recipes. If you notice on TikTok or Instagram, it's like if something is on trend at the time, everyone's doing it. Like suddenly you'll find like a
Yeah.
few creators doing the same video, kind of similar videos on that one theme, and then and it continues like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like what has helped me with it is to find creators who are really passionate about what they're doing and they have that proper qualification now also with it,
Yeah.
some of it, but sometimes that's also a disconnect because I feel like sometimes some of them who might be really good in their content, it's not put in a way that's especially like appealing for
Yeah.
you, like maybe the visuals or whatnot is not so super on, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah. It's a bit different.
or you like the difference, like when you listen to a lecturer compared to
Yeah.
yeah. So do
I
you
guess that's what social media is like. Right? It allows you to have the freedom to express yourself
yeah.
and to provide that information in a way that you like. And it also depends on the audience. Some people would like this, some people would like that. It's just how the information is brought out is also as important
Yeah.
as the information itself. And mental health is a very sensitive topic.
Yeah,
Right.
and that in itself also is something which I was discussing about it with people, right? And I'm curious to also know your thoughts on it because I feel that some bits as to why mental health has not really gained as much traction, right? I mean, after the pandemic, there was a bit of that traction, but now it's like slowly like, oh, okay, everyone's just kind of getting back to their daily lives, right? But I feel some parts of it is because when you think of mental health, it's very different from if you're thinking of some other topics maybe because mental health it has a lot of that doom and gloom with it,
Yeah.
like like some of the content out there also when people share about it, it feels like it's very like, okay, we go and then we talk, we pour out our feelings, we get sad about it, and then, you know, you either leave these episodes or this content feeling a bit more
Yeah,
yourself,
yeah, yeah.
or maybe slightly inspired, but there's not that extra push for you to take action, you know. So I guess in terms of the vibe, let's say the overall vibe of mental health, like what's it like for you?
I would think I had a lot of stigma onto mental health. Like what I said in the first episode, didn't really understand, didn't really acknowledge my feelings. That was the past. Until what I experienced, it kind of changed how I perceive mental health. Still a complex topic. Still humans are very complex individuals.
Yes, yeah, they are very multi-layered, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yes.
yeah. All our emotions all bundled up together. But I think one of the things that I kind of understand from the past and now is that emotions are a powerful thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you hold it on for too long, it might accumulate and becomes your worst enemy. You bottle it up. Don't leave it in a bottle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So right now, I guess what I understand is from myself, especially from my end, and this is a disclaimer that there's no therapy session or nothing. It's just it's more
Conversation.
educational. We are providing education from our experience.
Yes, yes.
But I I myself feel that bottling up too much is detrimental for myself. So right now I'm trying, especially I've been seeing a psychotherapist who's been amazing. You know,
Yeah.
she's been teaching me how to express myself more. So for example, if I'm in the gym, if I need to let out, I will be a bit more, slightly more aggressive than normal. If I'm playing my doggy, you know, it's her name is Pom Pom. It'll just be me and her, just jumping around, just having a little bit joy. If I'm sometimes I want to express myself in a little bit more sadness. Of my mom, for example, of what she achieved, what I achieved. Don't be afraid to do that. Especially now, you know, always thought like being strong means hiding it all in, but I think it's letting it out actually.
Yeah.
So right
Yeah.
now I kind of understand that approach, but also sometimes it depends on the context as well. Right? Sometimes expressing yourself too much, could it be bad, especially from a business perspective?
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you need to hold a bit of restraint, for example,
Yeah.
in a business setting?
Right, right.
So that's when the business side
Yeah.
comes in, segregating their business side and the personal side. Those two different elements. You know how in a business setting you have to be a bit more professional,
Yeah.
a bit more restrained.
Yeah, and it's a
Yeah.
very real thing. I feel that for a lot of them when they're in a professional setting, they get worried to even highlight it. Like let's say if the organization they might have certain policies. Like right now it's where quite a few companies they're coming more on board with the whole concept of neurodivergent. You know, like so let's say when you're talking about ADHD or some slight autism or whatnot. Other things lah,
Yep.
basically, right? They do start putting policies in place, but at the same time, you will have people who maybe even if they get diagnosed or they can have that support, they don't want to make it known to their companies that this is something that they're going through. You
Do you
know,
think that's
so
in Malaysia or still in the
in
rest of the
Malaysia,
world?
yeah, I would say Western is like they're a bit more open, right? Suddenly to be like, okay, everyone has to make this kind of
Yeah.
allocation or adjustment for me. You know, I feel like in Malaysia though, it's like there's still very much a worry of what if this goes on to my professional record, or what if
Yeah.
this affects like if I can get a job or not get a job. But have you seen that experience at least, even like when you're with your friends or so?
I think I myself experienced that there's a lot of stigma
Okay.
in the workplaces. I was from a financial service and oil and gas after in Singapore.
Oh.
And I will feel the disparity between Singapore and Malaysia is not that much difference. Although Singapore's mental health statistics are much better apparently, but suicide rates, to be clear, is still also underreported
Yeah.
in
Yes. Yeah.
Singapore.
Yeah.
Great country, however, stigma among Southeast Asia is still very high. Among whether it's among individuals or in the companies, it's probably worse. And if you're in a state-owned company, I'm sorry, it's honestly a bit more detrimental to your
Right.
mental health.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether it's a setting, bureaucracy, politics. Your mental health is not that much of a value. However, because businesses are seeing it more of a bottom line kind of thing, right? They only care about profits. They care about efficiency. But little do they know that mental health is actually a big part of productivity. Burnout,
Yeah.
absenteeism,
Yeah.
a higher rate of mental health negatives of mental health among your peers, among your employees, will be very bad in the long run.
Yeah.
Right? They would start missing work. They would start not coming to work. They would just not be that much of a peer to you, whether it's your subordinate or your leader.
Yeah.
And also on that, I would like to touch on the role of leadership
Yeah.
and how that sets a tone among the workplace. If, for example, your leader does not really care about mental health, what does that play a role? How does that look like on the ground, right? If you were to work 8 hours a day and you are full send the whole day, how does that affect you in terms of mental health? I think you also know that
Yeah.
it gets it
It
gets to you
gets a lot,
sometimes.
right? Yes, yes.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
also where things like therapy comes out.
Yeah.
Seeking help. In the eyes of a business, they some of them do provide this kind of services
Yeah.
to their employees. But my question is it PR? Is it marketing? Or are they actually helping
I would
you guys, right?
Yeah, I would say it's a mix, right? But going back to that point that you're mentioning about the difference between Singapore and Malaysia, interestingly, in my experience when I was in corporate, is that you do have quite a few of these leaders, right? And that is whether they are in GLCs, somehow in the GLCs or the state-owned, it's like they're a bit more concerned with how the employee is doing. I'm not sure if it's because like when you're talking about the MNCs or the private one, like you mentioned, it's like there's so much of a higher pace. They have to make sure
Yeah.
things get done or whatnot.
Yeah.
So in that, right, I have seen how some of them, like when they get very concerned, they don't know how to handle their staff. Like maybe the staff has all these issues that you mentioned, like they're not coming to work or whatever, all of it. They have started now exploring like oh, maybe this person should try out therapy first, and in a way it depends on how you look at it, because some of
Yep.
them will feel like, look, if I'm gonna
Yes.
dismiss you or whatnot, I better have like the full picture of it. It's not just your work performance, but let me also check in terms of your personal aspect if there's something off, that could be affecting the performance, so for that, at least I think what you said, it's really key, because it really depends on the quality of leadership in
Yeah.
that. Yeah, because like for the ones who are very much more caring, who are authentic in the way that they are leading, I've noticed that they just really want to know what is the issue with the staff so that they can help counter it. But for some of them where it's a lip service, or they just want to kind of get rid of the person so they have that additional head count, it may not be used lah in
Yeah.
such a positive way, and in my line of work, right, it's where, because and now there are more of these mental health platforms that come up, like they try and the online platform, so that you can book certain therapy sessions, whatnot, that companies
Okay.
supply for people,
Among
right?
companies you mentioned.
Among
Okay.
companies, yeah. There's more of it
Yeah.
coming up. But
Yeah.
the interesting thing about it, which I also found quite fascinating, is that people are not really engaging with it as much as they probably could. So the take up rate is low for it.
Okay.
Even though they don't need to pay. Like if it was for me lah, like I would think to myself, if I want to try out therapy and it's free on the part of, as in because my company is paying for it, and there's the whole confidentiality or whatnot that is assured, why not, right? Because that's the difference between like,
Yeah.
okay, get something for free, outside you're paying like maybe
It's
200,
accessibility, right?
300
Yeah.
per session, yeah. But the take up rate is also low, So
Okay.
what do you think, like, as in what could be some of the possible reasons you feel?
I think among companies, it's still stigmatized for sure. There'll be high judgment among that individual who's going for therapy. I think that's where it would be coming from. People
Yeah.
still think that seeking therapy it means you're in a crisis. It means that you do not have your shit together. It means that you are just angry or like just whatever happening in your life, you just cannot take it anymore, and that's why you go to therapy. But I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
Therapy is being able to be there, and maybe perhaps among all the chaos in the world, that everyone just likes to speak and not listen, someone who's actually there to listen to you. And maybe sometimes you don't even need advice, you just need someone to listen to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's, for me, maybe that's the most simple idea of therapy.
Yeah. Because
A listening best friend.
for sure, yeah, listening best friend that
Yeah.
asks you certain questions to make sure that you get in that direction,
Yeah.
because I guess even when you're talking about therapy itself, like it also been a very different experience sometimes when I hear from some of my clients, like they come, they tell me, oh, they've tried therapy before, didn't like it, or the therapist did something or said something which is probably not as appropriate. So one thing that I want to put out there also is that therapists are not meant to give you advice. As in they can tell you, okay, based on this, this is the opinion or whatnot, but it's not where they tell you what to do. Like you said, they're more to listen and then help highlight certain things which maybe you've not thought about or so, and then you guys can collaborate together to come to that solution.
Yeah.
But there are still a lot of people out there, some of these therapists, psychotherapists or whatnot, where suddenly, like, I'll hear from my client, like, oh, yes, my therapist told me I must do this or I must do that or so, and what happens with that is that there's so much of a dependency of them with the therapist. It's like whatever the therapist say, it's like from Bible like that, It's like,
Yeah.
like I must follow,
Yeah.
right? Which is not the idea of therapy at all, because you're supposed to go for it, yes, but it should be helping you build certain skills or a certain level of independence so that you're able to operate on your own, right?
Yeah.
Imagine fitness also, if everyone just consistently go for years to like one trainer, right, for one same thing, it's like there's some parts which there still needs to be that growth, right? And then they might come to you for like
For
different
sure,
things
for
instead.
sure.
Maybe they want to try more of mobility. Maybe another time it's more of cardio or so,
Yeah.
But if one is going to you consistently for years for an issue that you have never been able to tackle and you're seeing this person weekly or whatnot, I think that's a red flag. Yeah. But it happens quite a bit, even in
Yeah.
Malaysia too.
I
Yeah.
think you have to separate between rules and principles. How do you prescribe certain principles to them? And some rules, I mean, rules are meant to be, you have to abide by them, right?
Yeah, because
And
ethics, right, also.
these are
Yeah.
some of the things that you must, uh, as a client, you must follow these rules as a general rule, And just like in fitness, for example, a rule is you must be moving your body. That's a general rule, right? Move your body.
Yeah.
But the principle is move your body according to what you see fit. If you are not able to move 7 days a week, then you cannot prescribe a rule to move your body every day, right?
Yeah.
So if he or she is busy, then perhaps maybe 3 times a week is already sufficient, better than
Yeah.
nothing. So I think that's the similar kind of concept I would feel when it comes to therapy as well.
Yeah. That's an excellent point, actually. Yeah.
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 It's rule based and principle based. So this also comes along with a lot of the legal side of things when it comes to the world, right? So you can apply that same aspect into psychology.
Yeah, the same
Why not?
structure.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So it has to do with, I guess, also like what we mentioned just now, it's like the intention of the person, the certain qualities that the profession themselves have,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, so in another example is like, let's say in fitness, it's like the person can also work out like crazy or whatnot, but if you eating something you're not supposed to be eating,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you're still doing that 5 times a week, of course, for
It's
the result is not going to necessarily be as what you expect.
exactly.
So
Yeah, yeah.
so that's also one of the things that in therapy happens, right? Some of them, they might actually practice some of the skills, or they're aware of what are some of the skills that they need to practice, but when it goes off field, like out of the therapy session, no. And then they
No.
wonder, oh, so it's nothing's happening, so therapy is not that effective. There's also that.
Yeah, yeah. It also depends, right? Not maybe if one person is able to go to this therapist, doesn't mean everyone should go to that therapist.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. That's actually also a
Yeah.
very big thing in KL, I feel.
Yeah.
Like not just with therapists, but let's say professionals in general, medical professionals. Like I'm sure for you, right? Let's say you want to see a certain chiropractor, and especially for the previous generation to be like, oh, we all go to this one. So this one is like the fantastic one, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a very it's very much word of mouth, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes when you go, you're like, maybe this person is like it's good, but maybe slightly outdated lah because you know everyone goes to that same one.
Yeah.
They don't really explore different things, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point, right? Like through word of mouth, but maybe what's lacking in Malaysia, as well as Southeast Asia, is resources. Resources to connect the therapist to the client, right? You have Amazon where you can buy products. You can have Lazada. Why can't you have an Amazon for therapists? You
Or
have
it's
all your
Bumble lah.
therapists lined up.
Kind of
Bumble,
Bumble
a
for
dating app.
dating app. Like, do we seem to sync? Okay, come, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps that's one way to think of. You know, maybe you could have an app that connects mental health professionals to clients, consumers. It could very well be, maybe it could already be something like that on the
Yeah.
market right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
I
still,
think.
definitely, it's not. I don't seem to see anything like that among what I come across, especially from a marketing angle,
Right.
right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think the exposure, you know. So, because for example, I know certain platforms that are out there, so they have it, but they could also be targeting more of the corporate space.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about the one-on-ones for people, so there's quite a lot of people out there who also may not be able to afford certain sessions, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. That could also be a limiting factor.
Yeah, accessibility plays a big part now. Like I said, that's why there's a lot of awareness. However, action is not there. Maybe one of it is due to accessibility, not being able to afford a session, because one session can be very expensive.
Yeah.
It depends how much the therapist is charging for her session, right? But if you could reduce the cost and make it more accessible, especially for those underserved
Yeah.
communities, that will play a big role. And you can imagine that how do you reduce the cost, right? It has to come from, I guess, government.
Yeah.
The government has to intervene. And I remember the one of the sultans in Malaysia, or the king, right? He mentioned that he would like more advocacy in within the mental health
Yeah.
scene in Malaysia,
Yeah.
which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Also in Singapore, when it comes to leader, one of the leaders was speaking about mental health in Parliament, right? So these are the kind of things that you need, and then how does that play a role in businesses? If they can get subsidies, that'll be a very good thing from a high level.
Yeah.
Because if I were to get 50 ringgit therapy, well, why not? You know?
Yeah, but there is also a sentiment among some of them, right? And I think it's also something that could be similar for fitness trainers also. But you
Yeah.
can correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Yeah.
There are also some people out there that feel like, oh, if it is too cheap, right, means it's not of quality. You know, you could
Yeah.
be doing it as a service or whatnot, and
Yeah.
yes, because you want to do this charity or to help others, but there is still that thinking, you know. And so what happens is that a lot of this, maybe therapists or even fitness trainers, and so right, you get frustrated lah because you already book session or whatnot with the person, and then
Yeah.
you tell them, okay, it's the special price for you, and then they just don't show up or they don't take it as seriously. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, in the perspective of personal trainers or fitness trainers, I think when they get charged perhaps a lower amount of for their price, they're supposed to pay, it it will affect the market, the sentiment of the market, how this guy kind of quote unquote spoil market, right? That's what they say, spoil market because it's too cheap.
Same with houses also, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like one neighbor sell it, the rest all get angry.
Yeah,
Like, wow,
yeah.
you spoil the market price.
Small market, yeah. So that's what they say. But however, I feel you also need to balance that form of accessibility. For example, in the US, there's Walmart, right? Walmart, you know their prices are cheap because they're able to provide it cheap, and there's a huge demand for low price goods. and services. And if you are able to accommodate to that as a business, of course, it's small market, lah, right? People who are, I mean, look at Walmart. That's why they're huge. And they're able to penetrate that. But as a therapist, maybe you could see, as a fitness trainer, maybe perhaps you could see in a different light. In that light, providing accessibility to underserved communities. But also, if you are not willing to compromise your price because of your quality, I believe, rightfully so, you deserve to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's a freedom for you to charge your clients a certain amount of price because it's justifiable.
Yeah.
You are able to help a lot of clients. But I also believe on the other side of the spectrum that for the underserved communities, definitely they are not able to afford a very expensive therapy. So how do you balance that as a business, as a leader, an advocate of mental health, right? So I think it needs to be a bit of balance of both.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen how what some NGOs whatnot do. There's this one church I know that offers certain counseling services, whatever. They won't try to convert you lah. It's like they're just providing a service, right? What they do is they give a payment scale. You know,
Okay.
so like let's say, okay, you know, the bare minimum is about this price. But you know, if you want to pay more, whatever, depending on how much you can afford, then feel free to do so. I think that is also maybe a way lah to be a in between kind of process, right? Or
So you
like
pay according to.
to how much you can pay, you know.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah. So that so they would propose a price for you, but if you cannot meet that price or you can go a bit higher, then you can just feel free to do so. You
These
know?
are more of a social enterprise and NGO.
Yeah. But I was also very surprised that the quality of it was also pretty good because I know some people who have went for it, you know, because sometimes some of it, the perception that, oh, if it's cheaper, then maybe you're getting more of the interns or you're getting those without the experience, whatnot. You're guinea pigs lah. That's why it's it's free, right? But that church in particular, it's where they are of very high experience, you know, and they have the qualifications, whatnot. It's just something that they're genuinely doing to help the community, and I think that's great. I think that there should be more initiatives like that. I feel.
Definitely. Do you think that it should be coming from a government? The policies should be coming from the government to be able to promote these initiatives from the ground up, part of their CSR building within Malaysia?
Possibly, but I feel that there is a little bit of traction in the sense where when we're talking about research, like last time, if you're trying to look for certain statistics on mental health, you cannot find one, you know, because no one was doing it, you know. But now there are also this government bodies, whatnot, who are doing it a bit more, especially when it's targeting the youth, because they're finding that for the youth is where a lot more of them are getting affected with depression, anxiety, or so. You know, but I think in terms of the enforcement, the momentum, like real action being taken, because even during the pandemic, that time was where they said they're going to take about a year to do studies on it first to see what kind of policies were not to put into place, you know, and I think for some of it, you know, maybe it's beyond our control because it also depends on, I'm sure, the political landscape or whatnot. But if during that time, the time that is most important, you're going to take one whole year to do this research or to make the policy, then it's also going to be challenging. You know, as you said, it could also be a resource thing, like
from a government perspective, you mean?
from government, but also even in terms of people who are qualified, who are able to provide that service, right? And if especially a lot of them, they might also be more focused in the Klang Valley area, you know, you might not have as many of them in the different states, right? Who are able to provide this kind of service for them. That could also be another factor.
I think there's a mismatch as well between the cooperation, the alignment between government, businesses, NGO, communities, individuals. There is a big gap.
Like you remember that initiative Teach for Malaysia? Also?
Sounds
Have you
familiar.
heard of it? So that's where they kind of get more of the professionals, whatnot, and then they will also be teachers in different schools, so also in the different states. So it's a service that they provide, or that. But I thought that is a very, very good initiative because for you, if you're more from the urban area, and you go there and you see what it's really like for a lot of these public school teachers, what they're going through, what are
Yeah.
the issues and whatnot. It gives a lot more of an educated view. So even when you go back to KL, right, you're aware of what are the constraints, whatnot, or what are some of the actions that you need to take in that direction. You know, so I think if we had something like that for counselors too, it might actually be good, right? Because right now sometimes even how we are talking about it also, perhaps that's our perspective, but we don't know what are maybe some of the other possible issues that they're also facing, right?
Yeah. I think for now, let's not assume things.
No, we're not. We're just speculating. Okay, we're
Speculating.
not. We're not deciding for anyone, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But it's
just providing
always
our
good
view.
to have all these opportunities to improve the mental health scene in Malaysia.
Yeah.
For sure, there's a lot of opportunities, and I think there's a lot of work to be done, and a lot of role all of us can play from variety of help from you as a therapist, from me as a coach, as a business owner. What can we do to improve mental health within Malaysia, to
Yeah.
decrease anxiety levels, depression levels? There's a lot of role we can play, and I'm sure you have seen the statistics that is still overwhelmingly high in Malaysia
Yeah,
itself.
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, but I guess coming back to that point you talked about just now, right? We can set all of these policies or some of these resources in place, but the take up rate or people actually trying it out or so is a whole different ball game. So what do you think can help with that? You know, like for them not to maybe be so scared of mental health, to not be as worried about all of these things. Because sometimes you can tell them also, look, this is not going to go on your professional record. It's just between you and the therapist or that. But they still have that fear, you know. So what do you think are maybe some of the things that can help with that, you know?
I think first things first, we need to address that the elder generation are definitely more stigmatized, more judgmental than the younger ones. Definitely, there's a lot of gap between us, between me, my age, and some of the younger generations and people who are perhaps my mother's age, 60, 70 years old,
Yeah.
because they're so prone to, be strong in silence. They
Yeah.
don't seek for help.
Like your mom, if I'm not mistaken, right? The previous episode you mentioned
Yeah.
like how she reacted when she found out you're going for therapy. Is it?
Yeah.
Or how did
Oh,
she
no, no,
actually
no.
react?
She how she reacted when she found out I
I
had
had
eating
issues.
eating
Okay,
disorder. Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. So I guess in a way it all comes down to a big surprise to them. But when it comes to all of us, could we're not very surprised to all these things. Actually, it's quite common. Understanding is quite it's there. However, like you said, action is not there. Why is that? I think a lot of it perhaps still has to come down to shame, shame among ourselves. Is it? I was ashamed before for going to seeking therapy. Maybe I can speak on behalf of a few individuals who are also ashamed to go out there, or maybe perhaps they don't have the resources. Some of them, or perhaps they feel like they have certain friends who are able to listen to them properly. But also that taking action when it comes to the employee side of things, and even if they have accessibility towards it, whether it's affordable or not,
Yeah.
it could very well be a thing that they do not want to go for. Or also that it kind of surrounds them, right? That the stigma is still there. That's where the communities like mine, like the Miles for Minds community, play a big part to go out there and encourage people to seek help and have all these conversations around mental health, nurturing these supportive communities to be together. It's kind of like a grassroots mental health movement, and we do it through fitness.
Yeah,
Right?
and
So
I mean that such things like that, right? I'm
yeah,
sure it's a lot more appealing, you know,
yeah,
as in to some degree because people are like, oh wow, I can run with different people,
yeah,
you know, build that sense of community, and we go through it together, you know. So it might also feel a lot more comfortable, or you
yeah,
feel like okay, like even if I'm not going for mental health, I'm going for fitness,
yeah.
right?
You
But
release
with a
that
bunch of nice people, yeah.
release the endorphins, and when you release endorphins, you kind of have this magic around you. You feel good.
Yeah.
You're not very. You feel your emotions coming out, and I think that's the best time to go for therapy right after a workout, in
You
my
feel like,
opinion.
oh, yeah, see,
Yeah.
oh, all these people have went for therapy. I should try it out
Yeah,
too.
yeah. So that's actually one of the things that we also did. Like every time after a run, last time we would also provide resources to them if they should they need it. But also we do not go and force people
Yeah.
to do it, because you know what happens to people when you are forced upon to do something. It's just not nice. When someone tells me to do something, I definitely won't do it. It's
And
just
we don't
human
like
nature.
spin, someone ask you, force you go spin, because we're like, no, man, no, not
Yeah,
for
it's
me.
just human nature.
Yeah.
When you're younger, your mom tells you, "Oh, remember to do the dishes." No, not doing the dishes. It's just the way it is. When you tell you don't do the dishes, that's when you do the dishes. So I
Like
guess,
without realizing, you're like, oh.
yeah, yeah. It's just, I guess it's also human nature in that sense. It's also a part of us. How can we understand better among individuals? And that's when conversations need to happen.
Yeah.
And how do you spark these conversations?
Oh,
That's a
it was a
different thing.
technique we learned also in the mental health first aid course. Actually, they say you don't go to someone and be like, hey, you need to go for therapy, like something
Yeah,
wrong with
yeah,
you,
yeah,
right? You ask how things, and
yeah,
then sometimes what I also propose to some of my clients, right? Because they're like, hey, I know this person that needs to go for therapy, not going, right?
yeah, yeah,
That's okay. So you can also just give them certain like success stories, tell them like, okay, I had a friend that was like struggling with XYZ issue, and then they went for therapy and it appears to have helped them. So do you feel that there's
yeah, yeah.
something you
That
want to
prompt,
try?
right?
Yeah, prompt, but not
Prompting.
like you said, like chocho them to be like, hey, you go
Yeah,
now,
yeah, yeah.
something wrong with you.
But
I think
also
that
I
makes it more
feel
defensive.
when he or she feels that he or she doesn't need to go for therapy, I feel that that's when they need to go for therapy. You get me?
That's one of it. And
Yeah,
then the
yeah,
other one is where another quote that you see sometimes on social media is you go to therapy to deal with people who don't want to go for therapy. Have
yeah,
you seen that one?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel I need to go because I have so many things on my plate.
Mm.
I have work, I have a philanthropic side, I have my family. How do you balance all of this and the different, all these hats, right? It's very overwhelming. So I guess that therapy for me um, helps me release some of the things that I am unable to on a normal basis,
Yeah.
lah.
And
Yeah,
it's linked to what you mentioned just now, because as what you said, the common perception of people who when they hear someone else go for therapy, they might think like, oh, you're going through some big shit, like some shit has really hit the fan for you. That's why you go for therapy lah, because you have no other ways to deal with it. But like for you, for example, it's not necessarily a crisis,
yeah,
but you seem to be doing it also as a form of like um to help you release some stress.
yeah.
But
That's
yeah.
one way to look at it. I look at it uh, as a preventative measure to help prevent from bigger crisis that's going to happen in the future. So you release it slowly, slowly and slowly. It's not that it's there already. It's not that it's too late. And hopefully by the time if it's too late, I'm hoping that
You have more resilience,
I
so
have more resilience. Like
yeah.
exactly. Those are the things that I actually the reasons why I go for my own therapy. Not as much as I would like right now because I'm so busy and it's no excuses. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But how has it also helped? Like when you said that it's like a outlet or so, right? Like what has been some of the maybe benefits to it when you've went?
Okay.
Like how does it help you deal with the stress, for example?
It helps me see things in a different light. Yeah. So some of the things, for example, if I am too stressed, uh, all this stuff, and one of my therapists said that she said, you are doing too much all at once. She said that.
So you stop being an overachiever, Brendan.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what she said. You need to slow down. And I when I hear her over, I'm like, wow, do I really need to slow down? I need to, but
Denial first.
I'm in a denial first. Then I really look at her. No, I don't think. I think you need to slow down. Yeah. So these are the kind of conversations we have. However, after when you go home, you kind of realize that, yeah, perhaps it's not so bad if you just slow down and maybe all this pressure that I have myself, all these voices
Yeah.
in my head, they are real. At least I acknowledge it. And as she said, as my therapist said, just acknowledge it, make sure it's there, and make sure you're just stronger than ever to address these issues slowly but surely.
Yeah.
It won't go away, but it's just that you're holding its hand this time. So
Yeah.
I guess emotions are like, can be your best friend, or it can be your big enemy, right? You have to make amends with it. It's more like, for example, you're in a marriage with your emotions, right? You need to address all these things, so much more anger, sadness,
Married
frustration,
to so many
so many, and
emotions.
all some is on a good path, some are not a bad path. But I think some of the things also we need to recognize is, especially what I recognize and understand is, and learn from therapy is that these are all temporary. There's nothing permanent. You're happy, not permanent. Sad, not permanent. All is like, it's kind of like riding the wave.
It's cyclical.
Yeah, it's riding the wave. When you're in a wave, sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. It's like a roller coaster as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Sometimes you enjoy it when it comes down. Then when you go down, oh, so boring, then it goes back up. Yeah, and also it's also, I like to call it the marathon of life. Right? You go through a full life is like a marathon. It's not a sprint. To go through a full battle of a marathon,
Yeah, like when you
high,
run now
low,
also, eh?
exactly.
Yeah,
So that's why
eventually.
actually what I learned from therapy. It's a long game, definitely, and what it teaches me about life,
Yeah.
and how actually it also taught me one thing, that relationships play a big role. And you cannot thrive in isolation, for sure.
For sure.
You
Yeah.
are as good as your friends are, your community, your family, who you surround yourself with is also very important. If you surround yourself in a dark room for 30 days, you tell me if you're depressed or not.
Even if you're not depressed, you will become depressed.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the environment plays a big role.
Yes.
So this is what the therapy kind of taught me.
I
Yeah.
love that part that you shared about how acknowledging it and walking with it, because a lot of people, and I find these are also the ones that have a very negative view of mental health. They feel like, no, I just do not want to deal with this issue, like, or I don't want to feel these things because, and I guess maybe because some parts of it in their mind is that it's going to take me so much time, or it's going to take me so much energy to deal with this emotion or whatnot. So I rather not. Right? But the irony, right, is that they end up spending like months or even years avoiding it altogether. So you can imagine all the energy that is put into that, right?
Yeah.
Compared to if you just acknowledge it and you walk with it, you realize like, oh my gosh, it can take like half the time
To
or quarter
release,
the
right?
time, right? Because when you acknowledge, you can accept. It doesn't necessarily mean that you agree with it lah, right? Like you don't agree sometimes with feeling angry. You don't
Yeah.
agree with feeling sad. But at least when you're acknowledging it, you accept like, okay lah, I feel this way for now,
Yeah,
right?
for now.
But I can continue with it.
Yeah.
But there are so many out there, I feel, they are so scared, It's like maybe I don't know if this is something that you might have faced or you heard from friends, right? It's like before they try something new, they worry, or they may want the whole like idea of exactly each step, whatever all that they need to go through for that certain situation, that they end up not doing it because they're like, oh my gosh, it feels so complex, whatnot. But the trade-off that you have that is that you don't end up doing anything new. You don't end up
Yeah.
experiencing life differently,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Therapy really allows you to fall down. And that's why you need to fall. You need to fall down. You really need to fall down. You fall down there, that, and then you cry, you let it all out, you come back up. That's for me, that's what therapy is about. Like, it allows you to be vulnerable in a space uh, without judgment. And that's a very key part about judgment, right? When you speak
Yeah.
to someone, maybe someone you don't know, maybe it's a stranger, you just aren't are not able to confine your feelings and your emotions and your issues in that space. So so therapy really allows you to be a different individual in the space, right? You are able to express. You are not someone's son. You are not someone's daughter. You are not someone's colleague.
You don't have all these
You don't have
expectations
these
on you. Yeah.
roles. You are a client.
You are you.
You are you. You are you,
Yes,
and
therapist takes you as you are.
yeah, we take you as you are. So be, They allow you to be. So it's like in a garden. You're like the gardener. In the garden, very
I
nice,
love that.
flourishing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's very true.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, for sure. And also, I believe that you need to cultivate a very good relationship with your therapist. If you change it a lot, it may not be able to serve you that
Yeah.
much. You don't have that benchmark comparability and consistency among your sessions is also quite important. So he or she may able to evaluate
Yeah.
how you progress over time.
Yeah,
You
we
know.
call it the therapist client fit. So even for it works both ways. Like in the first session ish, if the client is not feeling comfortable with therapist, or the therapist also feels like for whatever reason, maybe they cannot handle that client, it is part of their ethics to be like, yo man, like maybe we're not such a great fit, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, he would be. I am happy to recommend you to someone else, but
Yeah.
at least for us, because we need to keep the client's interests at heart
Yeah.
for that. Yeah.
That's very, very good to hear, right?
Yeah.
The bottom line is you care about their well-being
Yeah. Yeah.
more than actually you care about yourself.
Yeah.
So
And
what since we're on this topic, so you've been asking me a lot of questions. Now I have to ask you a
okay.
question. How about therapists? When it comes to coaches, fitness coaches, they need coaches too. They need someone to build them up because they're so busy building someone else. Maybe they forget about themselves.
Yeah.
How about therapists? Do therapists need therapists?
Yes. I can say yes. We are not meant to be the Yodas of the
Yeah,
world,
yeah.
So even and it is healthy for you to also go to a therapist because, man, sometimes the things that you hear in sessions, right? Of course, you're like, so we learn certain techniques even in counseling itself, which is what you call transference. So like for example, if you have a certain client that has certain trauma, and maybe you have had that similar trauma
Yeah.
when you're younger, right?
Yeah.
So when you hear it, you're like, you get triggered lah, huh?
Yeah.
Right? As a normal human being,
That's
like,
true, yeah.
because you're not a robot, you will get triggered.
Yeah.
So the idea of when we learn that skill is to see like, okay, can we still view it as that, not without projecting our own views whatever to that client or so, right? We are able to hold that space and
Yeah.
hold firm with it. But there are also cases where when you are hearing certain things, and it's the same with people in the healthcare profession, like you talk about the nurses or the doctors, they see so much pain, right, every day. Like they might see the bleeding, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not
Therapists,
into that.
we see more of the emotional pain,
Yeah.
right? We see that pain, we feel that pain,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of these therapists themselves, you are empathetic lah. If not, you probably would have went for a different profession, right?
Yeah.
You would have been maybe
Yeah.
lawyer, accountant, whatever, all that instead. But
Yeah.
you pick this because you want to serve, right? So it's a very real thing that a lot of therapists, they also get burnt out, because of the emotional labor, the mental load that they put into it, right? And that carried. So a way for us to do it, one is to prevent the burnout by pacing yourself for sure. Like how it is in fitness also lah. Like you would pace yourself accordingly, right? Like you won't go super hard, or if you feel like some parts of the month maybe it's a bit more challenging, then I'm not gonna go extra hard at this point,
Yeah.
right? So we have to know that and see other therapists also sometimes when it gets too much, like
Yeah.
to share about it. So for me personally, what I do is where I have therapist friends that I meet once in a while. And of course, we don't share lah, the personal details like name, whatever, all of that. But
Yeah.
we might say that, oh, I had this one case that this happened, and we discuss so because then from there is where you're also getting the perspective, or you realize that, oh, maybe one of them has had a case like that, and it also triggered them a certain way, and then you can ask that what were some of the coping mechanisms, so you feel less
Yeah.
alone.
That's
That is
good.
how we have our community with it.
Of
Yeah.
course, I think since you guys play a big role in your clients, it's only right that you also seek help, right?
Yeah.
And nobody is helpless. Nobody is, don't need help. I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
Everyone is able to learn, to educate themselves, and also have a sense of community.
Yeah. That's why
Sort of nature,
I would
yeah.
think it's scarier lah. It's also a red flag if some of them feel like, no, I can do it all myself, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to see anyone at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever, then you'd be like,
Yeah.
In your experience, like, what do you feel is the gap that's still there when it comes to maybe content creators or influencers when it comes to mental health, or how can we make it more like more exciting, I guess, or more, yeah. So like, because to kind of deal with that stigma of mental health being so doom and gloom, or
Yeah. People would like bit more storytelling. Where you're coming from, especially your strength, yes, but more on your vulnerability. there was a lot of individuals out there who are exposing themselves from their vulnerability point of view and showing other people that where they're coming from, their experience, and then they also try to perhaps educate themselves on it, and then they try to share to the world. And they're not really forcing people to do anything, they're just giving advice. They are showing where they're coming from, but also not like putting out there that this is a must.
Yeah.
For example, I have a friend who she had a burn face. I'm not going to name names, but she's a great mental health advocate in Singapore. She's a great one. She went through an experience, burned her face, and she shared how that really affected her trauma of having a burnt face, and now she went through a whole different thing. She had thoroughly exposed herself to what her face looked like before and how she looks like now. Beautiful, beautiful young lady, right? So it's these are the kind of things people like really, so wow, there are people who are able to withstand and get back up when life pushes you down.
Yeah. It's very
And
inspirational.
these kind of inspirational ones will help a lot or make a more impact. We love a good comedy, right? We
Yeah.
like a good cat content, we like a good dog content. I love it. I love my content is full of fitness and dogs, right? So much of that, dogs and like that, and like, yeah. So when it comes to this inspirational content, I think it's very important because it makes an impact.
But something that I am keen to ask you about is like there have been some men who are more open about, mental health or whatnot. They might also find it easier to maybe talk to women about their issues. Like, you might talk more to your girlfriends compared to your guy friends or something that you're going through, right?
Yeah.
But I think that we need to hear from more men how mental health issues are because they are also impacted a lot in
Yeah.
that sense.
I do agree with you that I find it easier to confide in with women
Yeah.
because of that more feminine way of exchanging information. Perhaps we could be a bit more understanding and have this thrive among this supportive community. How we can, how men can exchange information in a way that it feels okay to not be okay. But there's still a lot of stigma, definitely.
Yeah, I think one thing that can help with it, like, and probably something that's also aligned with what you are doing, right, is where, because in the US recently, I saw this one interview which was kind of mind blowing, right?
Yeah.
It was like, between athletes, there was a baseball player, a lacrosse player, and they were talking about how therapy has helped them. So they said quite a lot of things that I felt would resonate with the men community. Like not just about the whole like or viewing it as soft whatnot. But what he said was actually quite impactful. He said that when you're in a team or you want to build a business or so, right, you are competitive naturally as a man. So you would think that going for therapy is not something that will vibe with you. But when you are in a business or you're building the team, you can't just be aggressive or dominant all the time. You
Yeah.
need to be able to flex, twist it,
Change it.
adapt it,
Adapt.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, and that's where therapy also helped him. So it wasn't just as like, oh, I go there to pour out about my feelings and we get all touchy feely, but it's one way for me to also increase performance, increase my leadership qualities and potential as a leader, which is something that I feel would resonate a lot with men, So
Yeah.
I think that the way that we could go about it is to get certain angles in that direction, or like have more men talking about it, but from that space, in language that maybe more men kind of understand. In KL, those who are very strong mental health advocates, or the ones that people listen to, right? They may not necessarily have the background or so for it, but what makes it interesting for them, how they actually build that following, is the stories that they tell and the way that they're telling the stories. So I think we need more of that in
Storytelling.
KL. Yeah, like like you said,
For
more
sure.
inspirational stories. Or
Storytelling
yeah,
definitely plays
yeah,
a big role among the men, but also like it depends who you're targeting. Perhaps on the athlete side, you can say you are able to improve your performance. Maybe on the chef side, you're able to withstand pressure. For example, my brother is a chef, so how does he withstand all this noise and live through it, right? And lead the kitchen and cook very good food despite
the chaos.
the chaos and the criticisms.
Yeah.
Yeah, so perhaps that's one way to go about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think more of a variety lah, right?
Yeah.
In that sense, as in different stories, whatnot. That would definitely help. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, great. I think that those are like really, really great points, right? And I guess to wrap up for today, at least,
Yeah.
so we've talked a bit about how different businesses, how the climate is like, also. But I guess if you think about the next 3 to 5 years,
Yeah.
right? What would you like to see more of in terms of mental health awareness also, or even the taking action part, right?
From a business point of view, have more of these programs coming out, but also have champions. Champions among your colleagues or your managers to champion these things, lead the way. If, for example, an employee does not want to go for therapy, but if he sees his leader going for that therapy, he may be able to be convinced and go for it himself, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's because the leader doesn't go. If the leader goes and is free among the company,
Yeah, that's true. That's a
I'm
very
sure
good
everyone will
point.
be going, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Everyone's
yeah.
like, oh, this is a cool leader, right? So leading the action, having these programs, but also leading the talk, leading the walk, right?
Yeah.
But having a true impact. And in the end of the day, all businesses would benefit. Productivity increases. Your leave of absence is gone. How many times have people said I'm sick, but in reality is they're mentally drained, right? When you go to a doctor, they won't say, "Oh, this guy is having a mental health breakdown, so I give him leave of absence." There's no such thing. But you can say, "I'm having a stomach ache," something like that. But you
Yeah.
also cannot check in reality. He just says he has a stomach ache, right? So how do you then,
Right.
as a business, you must be able to understand these cues also.
We need more of these champions
Champions, for
and
sure.
ambassadors in companies to make sure that it goes in that direction.
Yeah, mental health days maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not saying have 4-day work week. I'm just saying have maybe a mental health day. On the other end, there's also all of us as individuals, a role to play, providing safe space for everyone. But also a big part of it is on the fitness side. I feel we have a bigger role to play to provide that mind-body connection, right? Fitness helps a lot. I think fitness can be for everyone, whether you go for a run, you go for a walk, like you said, you go for a hike. These are
Yeah.
the kind of things also.
No, but it really makes a difference, right?
It
Because
does, it
as you say,
does.
you change your environment. You go to the gym compared to stressful environment.
Yeah.
Also, it does make a big difference.
It's mental clarity. So I
Yeah.
guess in a sense, I do see a big role in fitness shaping the mental health scene within Malaysia and Singapore. Mouse for Minds will be engaging with Selangor Mental Health Association.
Yeah.
So they are the new kids in town, right? They provide mental health services for underserved communities, specifically the B40s. So we're trying to raise a big campaign with them, a few run clubs this year.
That's great. That's already
Yeah,
happening.
that's a
Yeah.
big campaign. But beyond that, I'm also engaged using Mouse for Minds to engage with a charity called 24 Hour Race. They provide they are NGO, fitness-driven NGO that wishes to eliminate modern slavery. So I see a
Okay.
very big thing with the victims going through mental health breakdown. So that is a thing that we're probably going to collaborate with them. In a
Nice.
sense, it's modern slavery, but also as a foundation, I see a lot of impact it has on the mental health side of things. But beyond that, my hope is that Mouse Minds can be perhaps a foundation moving forward, or a proper NGO where members are able to contribute their time, their resources to make this, to improve the mental health scene within Malaysia. That is my hope, to connect the whole ecosystem, the
Yeah.
government, the businesses,
Yeah.
the individuals, the fitness communities, bring everyone together
For sure.
to show that
Yeah.
you are not alone.
Yeah, we definitely need more aligned efforts because sometimes you never know, right? Like there could be, like I say, business, they have their own, government has their own, or on the personal grassroots levels has their own.
Yeah.
But we are actually using up more resources
Resources, yeah.
individually than if you were to combine up.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah, if you're able to unify everything together with a single unified framework, which you have given me an idea, maybe I should build a framework
Yeah.
to bring
we
everyone
should.
together.
Yes, and then you get all the male athletes also to get on board
to
and,
advocate
yeah,
among
to
it.
advocate,
Yeah, that's a good point. But yes, a lot of work to be done. And as you can, as both our conversation concluded too, that it will help a lot.
Yeah, for
Whether
sure.
it's the country's economy, country's happiness, just be together.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're never alone in
Yeah.
this life. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So thank you everyone for staying tuned
Yeah.
and comment, like, subscribe, share it.
Authenticity. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes. So we'll see you in the next one.